Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Journey into tomorrow and beyond on Future Trek, where hosts Janet Kira Lessin and Karen Christine Patrick explore new horizons, concepts, consciousness, creativity, and topics that will blow your mind and crack your cosmic egg. We now view the box from the outside and envision new paradigms that propel us to a brighter future in a trek into tomorrow, into a future that works for all of us.
Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com. And this is an episode of Future Trek. And this is where we explore where we can go and how we can go and what's going to happen to get there and what are the pros and cons. And with us today is my co-host, Karen Christine Patrick. I'm Janet Kira Lessin. And we are talking about who are the homeless and how did they get homeless and what can be done about the homeless situation and the economy. And things are really going crazy now in the stock market. But we're going to focus on this whole situation to begin with on the homeless. So, Karen, this was your idea. So let me turn the talking stick mic over to you, and you can explain to us your concept for today's show.
Okay. Well, this came out of a big debate I had online, and I had posted it somewhere on my wall on Facebook, Karen Christine Patrick, if you want to go look. And it's kind of far down. But basically, it was like a week and a half ago or 2 weeks that I posted it. And what it was a gentleman got on his bicycle, and he put a GoPro camera, one of those sports cameras, on his helmet. And then he proceeded to ride down this one road in Los Angeles, or maybe it might have been Orange County. I'm not sure exactly if it's a county area or city or what, but... And the road is interesting because it's an older road, it's kind of chunked up. It's probably not used that much. And then in between the road, there was a fence that goes on and on and on through this whole shot, probably, 20 feet from the road in the screen that's on the left-hand side. And this fence is made in such a way that it's sort of, if you were on the other side of it, you wouldn't necessarily see what was on the right side of it from the left. On the far side of the fence is, the Matrix. It's like restaurants, stadiums, the playgrounds of everybody. And then there's this fence running along. And in between the fence and the road is tent cities. It's just one giant homeless camp, and it just goes on and on. I don't know how long the video is, but it just goes on and 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 on, and it just kind of makes you sick after a while, really. Just to realize. And then my partner Brett Colin Shepard is not ever ashamed to say that he was a homeless vet, and he ended up in California unable to get into housing because of the threshold for getting into housing. You have a lot of working poor, so he was working. But he was working poor. It means that he couldn't quite make enough to get into the housing situation, and that was 10 years ago. And when he saw this video, he said, oh, my God, it's 10 times worse, And so I posted this video and got really vigorous debate from someone I know, and it was just a visceral reaction. Basically, this person was going off on the idea that those people don't want to help themselves, and they're just lazy, and that most of them are either immigrants or drug addicts, and why don't they just get their act together and all that, And then my own personal life circumstances is that, I'm not too ashamed to say that a number of years ago, when I still had my kids with me, my first husband decided to take some decisions and that I didn't care for, and he was very was drinking, and he was being verbally aggressive and threatening, and so I ended up leaving him and getting help from the domestic violence services at the time in the Seattle area, and so in a sense for a while, even though I was not exactly in a tent, thank God. Because my youngest child was in a wheelchair, I got some specialty disabled-based housing help, and then I was able to leverage that and get, a voucher and end up in an apartment and safe and a new life. And I appreciate all the people who work in all of those different services because it was life-saving and life-transforming. But the scale of what's happening now, again, like Brett, I feel the same way. It's 10 times worse now of what's going on. So, I'm trying to explain to this guy, who's like going off on his immigrants and drug addicts and lazy people, that's not who's in that camp. That is not just, I'm not saying there's not people with substance abuse problems, because that's most definitely true. And I'm not saying there's not immigrants, illegals, and otherwise in there, but that's not the only people there. And this is the big,
right.
Basically misunderstanding is who is this happening to? I know fairly certainly, though I didn't I haven't investigated it deeply, but I could imagine that a number of those people that are there because they are homeless from the huge fires. There has been thousands and thousands of homes burned down on the West Coast last fire season. It was really bad. I was getting reports from family members in Oregon, too, where they were just having horrible fires. And it's not just like wiping out the forest, which is horrifying because it makes our animal friends homeless, too, but it was also wiping out ranches and people's homes and, big swaths of home loss. And then my partner Brett and I lost our house in Texas because of a series of storms, and we couldn't get help we knew we had an impending loss of the electricity, and we were finding out that if we did lose the electricity through storm damage, the cost of rehooking it up was kind of horrifying. There's a big, you have to get a permit, and the cost of it. We were friends with a gentleman where a group of us helped him, an elderly gentleman, get his power hooked up, and I don't know, it was like $6,000, and we managed to do that for him. And we just we had an offer to leave the area and go do some, go get involved in a project, which happened to be working with Ken Johnston. That's you can find out about that from us, but. We ended up going to New Mexico, and we were able to get stabilized. So we were basically American refugees. And that was an interesting term. I looked up that term, American refugees, and it's like it's only talking about refugees from other countries. And I'm going, oh, my God,
wow.
People are experiencing the refugee thing here. I had a good friendship with a gentleman who was in Washington State, and he and his family were in the 9th Ward in New Orleans, and they, one of the largest areas with African American home ownership for multi-generations. All, 4 generations of people lost their home. He said it impacted his whole family, but it just was devastating to his grandmother, who had lived there her whole life. And having her have to relocate was so incredibly painful. And he couldn't even stay anywhere near the rest of the family because of work. He had to go, basically from Louisiana to Auburn, Washington, just to get on his feet. And so, we're just, I think we should have a little bit of compassion here. And then there's just somebody lost their job, their plant closed. They couldn't make mortgage payments. Our banks are, foreclosing with extreme prejudice, and that's hard to recover from. I don't know what all happened in Houston, but you saw it in Houston with the flooding. What happens is you don't just lose, like, your house gets damaged. You could lose your house and also your place of work get damaged, and it doesn't return in a timely manner, for you to keep your job or to keep your business. And so, we're just, and we don't have a system anymore that's tremendously resilient like it used to be. If people had problems in one area, they used to move to another. My father and mother moved to Washington State themselves because they weren't getting work where they were, and they ended up going to Washington State because there was job opportunities at the time back in the day. So Americans are used to, like, you just pack up and move somewhere else, and that is just not, that mobility is not there. So who is there? It's not who you think. Yesterday I was completely horrified by hearing that there was a woman in Oregon, and we thought about going to Oregon, but hey, frankly, the rent's too freaking high for someone on a fixed income, which I am. And this woman was $328 behind on her senior housing rent. They kicked her out. There was a cold snap, and she froze to death in a parking garage. As little grandma, his grandma. It's horrifying. And the thing about
I was watching.
Go ahead.
Just interject. Yeah. I to keep track of where you are. It's horrifying. She froze to death. So I was watching Victoria, which is about the the potato famine in the 1800s. And it was almost like you could be talking about now. So here's something that happened. It was outside of people's control, like the flood, the hurricane, the fire. So these people, they all worked at potato farms, and nobody was allowed to own land. So their whole life was dependent on working this potato farm. And this blight came by, and all the crops failed. And a plague accompanied it, and so they were unable to pay their rent anymore. They didn't lose the structure, but they lost their income, and the whole society lost food. So people were starving to get to death. And the royals and the lords and all this stuff were calling them lazy. Well, if they would just work harder. This attitude was going from the Scottish legislature over to the British legislature, and the British said, well, if we give them food, we give them charity, then everybody's going to stop working because we're just giving out food. We're rescuing people. And it was horrible. And finally, Victoria, who has a big heart, just says, this is bullshit, and she said it her own way, but this is bullshit, and we're going to feed these people. So she did. But they weren't going to even feed these people. And that's what's going on here. We have people that are starving to death. They're out in weather that kills, be it too hot or too cold. They have no protection, no shelter. And, it takes a while to get on the system to get the food. And we're murdering. This society murders people, puts them out into the street and doesn't give a damn, and they die. Back to you. Continue.
I'm glad you mentioned the Irish potato famine, because my family history is that our great I don't know how far great grandfather was an immigrant to the United States from the second potato famine, because there was actually two, and there was a latter day one, and he came over. That's a great story. He came over with his 17 sons. Big Irish Catholic family.
17. Wow.
17 sons from I don't know how many wives. Childbirth was kind of risky back then, so who knows. But God bless the woman if it was just one. I haven't looked that deeply into the story, but basically, they weren't able to make it there, and so they came. And when they came here, all kinds of things happened, including, at least I think in the first potato famine, an awful lot of Irish guys got conscripted into the Civil War, into the army. They were used on the railroads. They worked on the railroads. They basically were somewhat discriminated against because the animosity between, the former Church of England people, who became Americans and had freedom of religion, didn't much care for Catholics. So, it was, it's always been hard for immigrants. So we'll talk about immigrants first. Of course, there's immigrants. That's a big topic, but there's something going on that drives me completely up the wall, and that is, this hostility toward immigrants. Blaming immigrants, the hostility towards the poor, blaming the poor, and the key word here is at least this, is they say, they need to take responsibility, and the base of that word is the ability to respond. Do you have the resiliency and ability to respond? Is there anything that you can do? There always has been opportunity in America, and so there was something they could do. So, again, the immigrants went into became domestic servants, or they worked in hospitals, or they worked in the army, or, they took jobs like that. There's the sort of the stereotype coming from the Irish immigration of the Irish cops, so they became beat cops, what's going on? No, what are you doing there? You shouldn't be doing that. Go move along, that sort of thing. Kind of almost ubiquitous and kind of a joke, but I mean a stereotype, I guess you'd say. First responders, a lot of the men worked in putting out fires and all that sort of thing. So we've sort of been able to absorb it up till this point, but just the whole entire social contract is in an upheaval, in a disruption from other factors going on. So what is interesting to me is that while we're all blaming each other and doing what I call poor shaming the people who don't have the ability to respond, they're trying to survive the situation, and what we have is the shaming quality. They're very quietly living lives of desperation, as the saying goes. We're not talking to each other. We're not talking to society. We're too ashamed to say anything about what we're going through, and don't want to be a burden. Don't want people to think there's something wrong with them or to judge them. And in the meantime, the amount of financials, especially after the GOP tax cut, the amount of money coming out of our economy and leaving it and escaping is so many zeros you can't even see straight on the other end. So the tax cut is taking, I don't know how many trillions of dollars out of the economy, and the poor people, all of them would have to work very, 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 very hard to rip off that much money. You know what I mean? I heard a stupid statistic yesterday that 75% is social services and 25% is everything else in the government. And I'm like, oh my God, really? What about the military? What about, things that, we don't get to vote for, really? That just happens, and we don't get to say anything one way or the other. So obviously I have a liberal, viewpoint on this, but besides that, this is talking to people, like sitting down with people, talking to them about what's going on in their lives and how difficult it is once you fall all the way down to get up to, even begin to even think about, can I go to work or something. People who have jobs really look down on poor people. Yeah, go ahead.
Work. Yeah, and the value of people. The value of people is based on work. And so we're basically slaves. If we do not work, then we don't have any value. And it's all about your work. It's like, who set that one up, Are all the planets in space just valuing people based on work? What about how you contribute? There's no room for, arts and creativity. That comes, people are discouraged. Oh, you're going to become an artist or a musician. There's so few people that make it in the world as an artist or musician, and so that's not valued.
Well, I'll tell you somebody who works really, really hard. There's a group of people who work really, really hard and they never get paid, and that's caregivers. So there's when you say, what does it take to send somebody out the door to go get a job to pay for something or other? There's a whole bunch of work, human work, that gets done for which there is no compensation and for which the other people are dependent on. So the ones that are getting the monetized jobs are dependent on somebody watching their family, somebody building that road. I mean, when somebody, kind of chastises me, well, I don't want them to take my money, I'm like, do you know it costs money to give you a job? It costs all of our taxpayer money to build the roads. It costs somebody to watch your kids if you need child care. It costs somebody to make sure your seniors are taken care of, so that you don't have to do that so you can earn the money. You've got to realize this is an interdependent situation, and this is where I know I offend the crap out of people when I say,
okay,
when
we got to shake
my
them up.
money. It's not your money. It's our money, and you'll be really glad of that.
Well,
if somebody hits you with a car and you can't work.
Our resources, the planetary resources, and everything belongs to we, the people, to everybody. Who decided that someone gets to own it all and distribute it? It's a distribution system of what belongs to everybody, and somebody decided to hoard it and obfuscate it and call it theirs. And civilized, conscious civilizations that are level 1 and above do not treat its global citizenry the way that we here, the human population, treats the citizens of this globe. We are in a slave culture. There's no room for doubt. We are all slaves of one kind or the other, and the shit's going to hit the fan as we expand into a jobless or reevaluate jobs, because we're going into robotics, and things are getting roboticized.
And automation.
And automation. So what are they going to do? Are they going to kill all these people off? But there's a value in everybody alive because they contribute by being consumers. If you didn't have people consuming, so
that's
getting the money to them and they use it for basic needs, like you give somebody $500 a month and they're going to stay alive. The basic formula is staying alive. They're going to have to eat. And, they're going to have to be consumers. Even if they buy alcohol and, drugs, they're still contributing back to the society, because it ends up back in the flow. Somebody ends up buying food and paying for housing and paying for transportation and paying for the infrastructure that goes into an economy, a healthy economy. It just goes into the flow. You could do a society where you have, okay, this is what you get for housing. That's what they tend to have. They have food stamps, and they have HUD. So if you get HUD money, you have to put it to your housing. If you get food, this and that. I mean, that kind of immortalizes people. But, the Republicans in the world go, well, they're buying drugs and alcohol. Well, okay, so then we'll force them to pay for the housing.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. As far as I'm concerned, because there's this for instance, the baseline philosophy of the tax cut is going back to economic theory that I know something about because I was sort of there when it happened, and that was Reaganomic economic theory. Reaganomics in the Reagan administration went to supply-side economics. So you got the basic idea of capitalism or trade or marketing or economies is you have a supply side and you have a demand side. And the idea is when you increase the amount of things, so the supply side of it, then the price goes down and it becomes affordable to people, and then they buy it, and then that kind of starts. That's the beginning of trade and the economy that eventually becomes jobs. Well, there's a problem. There's a big problem when they went to that philosophy, because the guy, the economist, who developed that idea and sold it to the policymakers was Milton Friedman. I actually got to see him speak at my college. He was a very interesting guy, and he had a principle that got missed in all the hullabaloo to enact this idea. And the idea was that he had the idea of something, you and I have talked about a basic income, and he had a basic income idea. And there's lots and lots of policymakers in history, going back to even Thomas Paine, were talking about the idea of a basic income. His idea of a basic income would have been that there would have been a negative income tax. So if your income dropped below a certain amount, let's say it dropped below, I don't know, $12,000 a year, okay, $1,000 a month, then instead of paying an income tax, you would be getting a tax return to the equivalent of making sure that you got that $12,000, so that if you lost your job and you had to retrain or go back to school, you would be supported while you're figuring out what you're going to do next. Or if you're a woman and you have a baby and you take a year out to take care of your infant, then you would have been supported. I mean, they did not do that part. They did not do the negative income tax or basic income as in a more just give people money every month as a basic income in the Nixon administration either. So this idea kept coming to deal with the downturn type issues and the fact that our economy the velocity of our economy changing is too fast for most people to adjust. It's even ramped up from there. And this would have been a way to stabilize people. The mistaken idea is this. They think that if a man invests money in a business, and I have said man for a reason, if a man invests money, gets capital, invests it in a business, that's the beginning of economic activity. No. That's not true. The beginning of economic activity is when somebody needs something and they got to use money to pay for it. So if they got to pay their rent or if they got to get some food or whatever they need, there's going to require money for them to use it. That because we're still in a monetary system, that's the start of economic activity. So what happened was they kept giving more and more money to the supply side to make sure that the prices would come down. Well, the supply siders had been practically given a tax blank check over a very long period of time. And what did they do? They started taking the businesses overseas. They started automating like crazy to where I've had at least one or two jobs that have been now automated out of existence. And automation isn't just robotics. I was at Walmart the other day. They only it was the beginning of the month, so a lot of people shopping. They only had like 2 checkout aisles open, but they had the pay it yourself, the self-serve open. That gets rid of cashier jobs. Amazon Go just there's no cashier at all. I mean, this is happening a lot faster than people realize. And the grocery business, truck driving, and other forms of driving were very, very high-paid jobs, which are now, because of Uber, the taxi driver thing went away. Uber is experimenting with automatic cars. So there's a lot of experiment. I think that the first automated vehicles will come in the terms of trucks because the corporations are big enough to force it, to force the legislature to make it happen. This is a train coming downhill is technological unemployment. So we're not going to have the normal economic cycle. So, the economic cycle is like
we need to revalue human worth or life worth beyond jobs and have a different system. And so, I mean, did you watch the Elon Musk launch?
No,
I didn't know if that was real or animated.
But week, and I'm so happy he got it up there because
apparently the rockets that launched it came back to Earth and landed themselves. So that's robotics. Wow. That's I mean, we used to dump them in the ocean, right? Or they'd burn up.
Oh yeah.
Nope, they turned around. There was an animation. They turned up and headed back home and they righted themselves up, and the rockets came out, and they landed, and they'll be used in the next one, refueled and used in the next one. So that was, I don't know if that was real or not. I didn't get to see it, but I'm going, if that's what's going on, woo,
we're in a different era.
And a lot of we are in a different. We have changed timelines. We're getting out there. So maybe the value. If you look at Star Trek, I like to. We're at the halfway mark. I'd like to look at the positive realities that we can
we
co-create
turn on the
together.
halfway mark. We'll turn on a dime and talk positive. I agree.
No, we can. Well, let's finish. Is there any other negative, cathartic things? Because
actually,
this whole
I
thing
think
sucks.
this could be the greatest time ever if we updated one technology, and that's how to redistribute goods and services. That is the archaic technology holding everything back. This is a wonderful time where dangerous jobs and tedious jobs and where you got to work around chemicals and all that can be done by robots. Yay, and it could be the best time ever. We just need to catch humanity's provisioning up to this new paradigm.
So I'll give you an example of a positive use of robotics, and it was outlined in this show called Humans 1.0, or I guess it was, or 2.0. Anyway, it's on Amazon, and you can watch it, and it's free, or part of Amazon Prime, whatever that is. I have it. So there was a woman who was like Karen's daughter, bedridden, and she was in an accident. She got paralyzed, and they had a male robot, and he was quite capable of picking her up and taking her to the bathroom and cooking her meals. And, a lot of caretakers end up destroying their own bodies by picking up a 100 and 200 pound, to 200-pound person, and it just torques their body and destroys their back. Yeah. And then their whole lives they become slaves to the person that's bedridden. So someone has to be there all the time, give me a glass of water, feed me, take me to the bathroom, take me back. And so this woman had someone who paid attention to her. So
it's better. That's a big deal. And I realized in taking care of my daughter, in her life and my life with her, gravity was not our friend. I mean, the need for her to be lifted, taken places. Don't get me wrong, I loved taking care of her, but what is kind of true in the world of caregiving is if you have one patient and very involved loved one, you get two patients out of the deal because of the stress and the physical stress work. And many caregivers, it's a young person's job because they literally get their bodies destroyed out of it. And then you got the stress of you wanted to help but you couldn't, or you couldn't keep going with it. That's right. a wonderful thing. Just having changes in technology where you can take that person more places. So wheelchairs, this is the thing that drives me up the wall. We get to see all these cool scientific gadgets that would really, really help people, but they're not covered by insurance. You know what I mean? That's the other thing. We do need some Medicaid. And, I mean, it's exciting to see these wonderful new treatments and this great technology and everything like that, but honestly, unless you're a 1%, you don't get access to it. I mean, the thing that would make it more wonderful is if we made it available to everyone. And there's actually no reason why we can't. We just have to make some changes, and I often talk about the basic income is the first step, and Medicaid for all. Health care in this country is obviously going to bring costs down, so it's going to be easier to add more things. I mean, it could be great,
It's the ultimate racism. The only valuable people on the planet are the 1%ers that have money, and they're valuable because they work for it. A lot of the money just goes from generation to generation. So the current people, they work for shit, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing is a cap on personal wealth. If you stop giving it to the next generation and put it back into the pool, there's more than enough money for everyone and everybody on the planet, and I'm going to use a should, but they are. Yeah. They're equal in value to every other person. Every soul, every person incarnate is equal. Yeah. And that's the whole problem. So if we just level the playing board and got our head around this is racism, I think we're getting there because, somebody just quit because they were abusing their wife. We're starting to recognize that these things are not acceptable. And racism is not acceptable. Valuing one person over another just because they've got money. That's bizarre.
Well, yeah,
When we're on the other side, if we're dead, you're going to be? Is Rockefeller or something going to be more valuable if they really die? Well, there's this whole theory that they don't die. They get
well, there you go. There's a conspiracy theory.
Let's just say they die, and they're over there at the pearly gates, the fictitious pearly gates. Is God going to say, well, Mr. Rockefeller, you're more valuable than Karen Patrick because you had all the stuff in a bank account? No, I don't think so. So
well, yeah, and which is kind of the core of what you said. The core of what you said there is and this is why I love the basic income movement, because we have these conversations, is think of money as a utility and medium of exchange, not some kind of point system of how cool you are.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Oh, you're so cool. You've got money. Oh, wow.
And I know that rankles a lot of people, but I mean, when you're dealing with statistics like 8 individual people, it was 200 a number of years ago. It's been going down. I've been watching this statistic. Own half the world's wealth. You know, and I've often said, is this like that movie, The Highlander, is going to be one? There can only be one, and that will be the emperor of the world. You know, I don't know where this is going.
Oh, God.
But it's ridiculous. It's like it's ridiculous if you think of our medium of exchange as a utility, as something it's supposed to be. We all believe it to be so. It's supposed to take care of all human needs, and it obviously is not. So then why are we investing in it? Why are we thinking that's important if it's not doing its job?
I think the reason why it has power is belief. And people believe on some level. The people that support, there's critical mass that supports this whole concept that this person is more valuable because they have billions of dollars. And they're not on a core level, but they do. They act on it and they accomplish their goals and they get what they want because somehow they fooled the rest of humanity into believing that they're more valuable because they got digits in the bank. And it's like, what? So I think if we stop believing, it's like there's a need to have celebrity. I was watching 2 series, Elizabeth, or it's called The Crown, and Victoria, right? And they're running around after these royals, like 100 years ago, with the turn of the last century, and like he's a rock star. It was just like the Beatles. It's like, what is this need for humanity to have celebrity, to elevate someone above the rest, to have a god? It's the God spell. And people have looked at this psychologically, that some people, I guess they don't value themselves and have enough self-esteem that they have to put that attribute, they distance themselves on the apparent other and elevate them to this celebrity status, which is overinflated, right? Nobody's worth more than the next person, but because they have this bloodline or because they made this movie, now they're a celebrity, and they must be celebrated, and on some level they're worth more and valued more than the rest of the population that sits there and just takes care of their family or something, and they're not a celebrity.
Well, Janet, if someone were to ask me that question, I would say go to aquarianradio.com and check out all the Anunnaki books by Janet Lessin and Sasha Lessin, because you guys have done a pretty good, in-depth analysis of a psychosis, a mental illness that has been imposed on humanity, to think in terms of sort of a pyramidic hierarchical structure. And if you want to go on, we can talk about that for a couple of days here on the program today. It's kind of a deep subject and wide and tall and long term. Yes. But what I say is this: is that I'm recommending to people to go check out the basicincome.org and look at this particular movement, because this particular movement is talking about, something that Alex Collier said. He was asked by aliens, and they said, "Why do you have to pay to live on your planet?" I love that outsider view of our Star Nation.
I love that
friend.
too. I quote that frequently. So this is I'm putting it on the website, basicincome.org. Okay, I will go check that out.
Even if you don't know anything about it, or you're not sure you agree with it, or anything, or you think it's even if you think it's a bad idea, just look at the tenor and the discussion, where the discussion is at. When it comes to economics, I don't really find anywhere else except maybe cryptocurrencies to a certain extent, where they talk about what's really going on. And that's our biggest problem, is that our governments and policymakers and politicians, they're not, when I listen to them, the State of the Union and different things, which, I boycotted because, I just don't hear them talking about what it's like for everyday people. What are our struggles? What are our concerns? What are our fears? And what do we think would actually fix something? And they're not talking about technological employment.
Karen,
it's very
they
difficult.
They don't care.
No,
they don't care about us.
They don't.
In fact, it terrifies them if they were to level the playing field, because there's something about them that they need to feel they're so important and that they're so much more valuable. So this whole structure is supporting these sociopathic people.
Which are very mentally ill people. They're very mentally ill people. If you've got to have that to prop you up as a human being, then you must not think much of yourself, to be honest. Or you think too much of yourself, it's reversing back on itself. I'm not sure, but it's a narcissistic need which can never be filled. I get it, but okay, so have that. Be that way. Don't impose it on other people. I'm sorry you feel that way, but don't impose it on the rest of us. Right?
I once had a conversation with a pseudo-royal, someone who rubbed elbows for 2 years, and we got into these big debates, and the bottom line is, what? Would you have me give away my wealth?
Yeah.
No, they won't even give away 1%. I propose, if you give away 1%, do you realize that will eliminate, hunger, and people can get maybe up to a bachelor's degree, everybody alive, and everybody would be contributing more to the world. They'd be more educated. But they actually, so that's where it only makes sense that this is the Illuminati or the Bilderbergers, or, this is the power elite that are not going to give way to these things because it doesn't benefit their agenda. I'm not sure how to resolve this, but
I think we need to believe in us and not them and not their values. I mean, I think it's a change, a fundamental change of what is valuable. And we get downloads in me, and for 2 weeks I've been getting, you are the value, you are the value, you are the value, we are the value. Literally, currency doesn't really mean anything if we don't believe it. We literally are the value.
Right.
Our belief in it, our willingness to invest energy in it is really what props the whole thing up. And the other thing I was, track a lot, because I'm just being a computer geek, I'm very interested in cryptocurrency, because the kind of interesting part of that is the very first thing that's going on is a recognition and an acknowledgement that you're creating a scarcity. Everything is manufactured. All value that we invest in these monetary systems is believing it to be the scarcity of it, or we think it's scarce, makes us invest in it in a different way than if we think it's abundant. And so we literally, I think the number one thing we manufacture in the United States is scarcity. You can't if you have lots of it, you won't need to use dollars to count it. But if you make less of it, then you need more dollars to count it. You need a little, monopoly coins or whatever. And so, like a Bitcoin is there's only so many Bitcoins. And so because there can only ever be so many of them, you just build scarcity right in, and now everybody's freaking out because you see what I mean, how it's working. Yeah, so we're confronting that we have to manufacture scarcity. Well, one of these days, I'm telling you, in the future, human beings are going to look back and they're just going to think we were just mad, we were crazy and primitive and barbaric because we thought scarcity was a good thing.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, that's this whole economic thing, which I took basic economics 101, and you have to wrap your head around it a little bit, but the whole introduction of money as a system of exchange and a system of value. When did that come about? So you can go back in time in the Anunnaki structure. Nanar, the god Nanar, introduced the concept of money to create a slave species, and that's been in place for several thousand years, and we are all slaves, corporate economic slaves to a system that doesn't honor consciousness and doesn't allow for people to even get their basic needs met. But if you're one of the people out there listening and you've got all your needs met and you're comfy cozy, you're not real, even if you're just lower down in the totem pole there, most people don't really reach out and do much about anybody else that is homeless. It's not very giving society.
I don't think. Yeah, I think I've often said our hierarchical system doesn't do anybody any good. It's a struggle for those at the bottom, but it is also spiritual bankruptcy for those at the top who don't care. I mean, ultimately we go into inner life and we evaluate, our spiritual values. And if we just went for materialism, and if we didn't understand what the point of the thing was to grow spiritually, then I'm kind of betting you'd come back as a poor person, So I don't know about that because that's different people's opinion, but I'm just saying, what are we getting out of human life in general? And that is the experience and maybe lessons. And, if you didn't realize something that basic of what real value is, and it's each other and it's love, then, you've got moral bankruptcy. And I don't know what to say about those people, but I think because of consciousness raising and raising and raising, I think what happens is the rest of us get this. And when they get this, it's going to be that we value each other, that we value abundance, that we value nature, raise our consciousness. I think we're going to get this. I think that somewhere in the mix of all this, and maybe I'm a crazy optimist, I'll talk about really, really scary stuff, and then I'll turn around and be optimistic. I think we're going to get this. But I do. I think we're going to get this.
I hope so. But
I've been called Pollyanna because I believe that,
Yeah. When I go to town and there's homeless people on every street corner, I tend to keep my windows up and just keep driving. I just... I don't know.
Well, then that's it. Who's homeless? Well, it could be any of us at any time, but it's the unknown. It's like we don't know who those people are because we've got this wall between more and more of us and no pathway up, and so we really don't know who we're dealing with. But you know what? I don't think that's just true of homeless. You actually don't ever know who you're dealing with. I've had people, supposed religious people, and respected in the community, and myself and other people have gotten on the wrong side of them, and they've just been horrendous, done horrendous behavior worse than what could possibly be done by a potential homeless person, depending on the person, right? I just think, when we recognize that that's us, who's homeless? Us, a part of us, part of the human family, us, if there's a run of bad luck, it's me. It's me. It has been me. Uh-huh. And it could be me.
Right.
And so what would I want if I was in that position and do something about that? I think the biggest brokenness is this arrangement we have that kind of comes from the top. And I really encourage people to investigate what it is I'm saying. The basic income idea would put a floor to poverty, which you can go completely down and out. There's a big difference between having a little bit that you can kind of leverage and absolutely nothing at all. And that makes a big difference. That gives people hope, and it helps them, have something to work with. If you've got nothing to work with, you can't incentivize somebody. They don't have the ability to go where there's a job, they have no ability to clean themselves up. They have no ability to, to whatever did you say, take responsibility. You got to have something in order to take responsibility with. So this creating zerohood for people is not incentivizing. What's the point? Why would you want to incentivize someone to work? And they say, well, if you give them the money, they won't be incentivized. Well, you got to realize there's a cliff. There's a drop-off point. We've got to stop that drop-off point from taking too many people down too far to where their health fails and their resources fail, and where they don't even have a chance. It's not right to if you're going to judge somebody after they've gotten a chance, and they're messing up. That's different than if they don't even have a chance in the first place.
Right.
And that's how I felt about it.
There was I think it was somewhere in Utah. They took all the homeless and they gave them housing. They gave them it was a nice community, and they gave them like a 1-bedroom apartment, and they gave them dignity. And everybody that got this, I forget the thing, but it was, everybody who got off the streets, they were clean and they had food. They had the incentive to do something, so they wanted to give back to the world, and so they went and took got the education and got the jobs, and they were out there being the valued people that were working. Once again, the slaves. But it was cheaper in this documentary to give the homeless homes, because it costs less to rush these people to the hospital or to have the additional crime or whatever. There were all these different factors that made it cheaper to actually give all these people the homes. And so the interviewer said, well, how did you resolve the homeless situation in whatever this was, Provo or Utah, somewhere in Utah? And they said, we resolved the homeless issue by giving the homeless homes. That was very wonderful.
Yeah, they call that program Housing First. People can look that up, Housing First. And it's a great program because one of the things is, how are you going to get a job if you don't have an address? People won't hire if you just put, I don't have an address when I'm filling out an application. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. What you're saying is that, of course, you get them out of the weather, they're not sick. You give them a home if they do have substance abuse issues. You're going to decrease the stress they're under, so that they'll be more inclined to, go to whatever rehab that they need or whatever. Not everyone, I get it, but a lot of what people do when they're doing substance abuse is self-medicating despair and stress and PTSD and things like that. So, yeah, and also, oh, my God, it's so cold there. That's almost inhuman. You wouldn't even leave your dog out in weather like that, let alone a human being. That happens all the time.
We have people out, and there's no place for them to be, and the shelters are full, and just no place for them to be, and they're sleeping on the street, and it's like, it's just.
I got to tell you one really perversely weird story about that. There's a dog shelter in San Francisco. I think it's the SPCA. Don't quote me on that. They got a robot sentinel to go around the block and chase away the homeless humans. And how about that for? I'm all for the dogs and the cats and everything to be taken care of, but can we take care of the people too? That'd be nice.
Right. It would be nice to take care of the people. So anyway, it's a shame this is going on, and I would like our society to stop just judging and start looking for solutions for this.
Exactly.
Killing people and shipping them off planet and putting them in prisons and all that stuff. There's got to be a way that we can allow each and every person to have dignity, beauty, grace, peace, respect, consciousness. Just like Alex Collier said, how is it that you can charge? How the alien said, how is that you can charge people to live in a world they didn't ask to be born into?
Why do you have to pay to live on your planet that you were born on?
Right. Yeah, you have to pay. Good question. So, we will definitely be looking into this. I created a page. I didn't publish it, but I was gathering images, and it's sad. And you have something on your Facebook page. I couldn't quite find it.
I'll try to find it for you
send
and
that
get you
to
the
me.
link. Yeah, because it kind of just put it in a way that, because it was like 8 or 9 minutes of just driving, him riding his bike down the road and down the road and down the road, and just the scope of it kind of hits your brain. And it made me think of renewing my efforts to, I do believe in I've helped with all kinds of charitable stuff over the years, and proudest moment was making sure people had water there on the street in Olympia, Washington, access to free water. That was something that was important to me. But I mean, the on the street part is what breaks my heart. That's just not right at prima facie. And when I kept looking at this, all roads lead to Rome. All roads lead to a broken monetary system where we don't capitalize the demand side. Because every person gets put into housing, well, they're going to need things for their housing. They're going to need supplies, and that's going to be jobs for other people. So this affects everybody. It affects everybody.
Right. Well, I'm looking through homeless images, and it's just heartbreaking. But I did see a YouTube, I'm trying to find it, was on this page, where there was somebody that was sending food to people. They wouldn't ask them. That's what they asked them, what they need, what they really need, and then he went to Amazon, and Amazon had a system of, you could say, well, it's the guy with the black coat on the corner of 5th and Main, and and they would be there within 30 minutes or something with what this person needed. So some said, I need a coat, I could really use some warm socks, I need gloves. Some needed a meal, I'm hungry, I'd like some whatever. And it was just heartbreaking. I'll have to find that. It was just amazing. So yeah, they always say, well, we don't want to give them money because they're going to go buy alcohol, but this guy took the time to give them what they personally said, I need, underwear, I need whatever it was, and so they helped out. So there are people out there, but we need more. Everybody has to do more. Stop blaming and shaming, like you said earlier. It's a shame society. That's ridiculous. You're judging, you're blaming, you're shaming. And if you're a Christian, you said, what's that saying, that don't judge? Judge not that you be judged.
So the same measure that you judge is the same measure you'll be judged by, basically. And it could be you. And then if it is you, if you do have a need, you're going to feel so tremendously embarrassed and horrified that it's now your turn, or angry. I mean, if you recognize in yourself that you've got value, you don't have value just because you get a paycheck, and you don't have value because you inherited some money, and your value doesn't come from that. Your value comes from something much more important than just your connection to source. It's just your connection to spirit, or your contribution. Hey, the plants love you because you're breathing in oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide, and they need carbon dioxide. So, we've just got to change attitudes. And I think we're gonna. I feel good about it when I feel very encouraged. So if someone wants to feel encouraged, do read about a basic income, and do read about, some hope that we're going to turn this around. I can't just read the negative. I got to go read the positive too, and advocate for it.
Yeah. Well, last words for you. We're going to wrap up this show and call it a day.
Karen, I always
word.
choose to be, I always choose to be positive about the future. I've had everybody tell me how crazy I am to think that way, but I don't care because I don't want to pick the alternative. And onward and upward.
Right. So anyway, this is the first of the series. Well, first of the series on homeless, and basic minimum needs. We've actually looked at this before, but we will be taking a closer look at this. And if you want to send us some feedback, write to us at aquarianradio@gmail.com. If you have any questions or things that you want us to look at, we would love to read what you send or look at things and address these issues in future shows when we have time. So Karen, speaking of homeless, you're going to go, or caretakers, you're going to go do caretaking again, right, with your mother.
Oh, yeah, everyone gives
God
some
bless
positive
you.
thoughts to my mother. She's having some health issues, so I'm traveling from New Mexico, where I lived, out visit her in Washington State in the dreariest, coldest, drippiest month of the year up there. But, I'm glad. My heart will be warm to see her and see her get better.
Excellent. Okay, my dear, you take care. Love and blessings to everybody, and aloha.
Hey you! Are you ready? Grab your pack, grab your tent, grab your gear. Jump in. We're going on an adventure. In Arizona, there's so much to see, so much to experience. At GCU, adventure is never too far away. Offering over 200 academic programs with a Christian worldview and nestled in the heart of Phoenix, you can earn your degree in fewer than 4 years and explore everything Arizona has to offer. Find your purpose at GCU. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu/AZ road trip.